Hey folks, this is Dr. Emily Scherning with American Resiliency, here with an up-to-date climate outlook for all of our friends in Missouri. We have folks in the St. Louis metro, outside St. Joseph, in Kansas City, and I also want to provide some details for the benefit of the folks at Dancing Rabbit just north of Rutledge. I hope this outlook will be of some use to you all. Let's check out what we're projecting for Missouri as we approach 2C. If this is your first time here, take a minute with me to see how I set the table, because I want you to be able to fact check everything I say without too much work on your end. The resources that I use can be found at my website, americanresiliency.org, under the Resources tab. If you scroll down here, you'll find everything that I'm going to use in this video. One more piece of important background information. When we're talking about climate, it's important to note that we are not where we expected to be at this time. That, as you can see in this monthly bulletin from the Copernicus Climate Institute, which is the European Union's climate organization, we're continuing to sit right around 1.5C above pre-industrial baseline. Many prominent climate scientists are coming out to say it's looking more and more like we are off the models. The scientific community is also noting signs coming out of Antarctica indicating that we need to take higher end sea level rise quite seriously. Now, that's not a direct concern for Missouri, of course, but it is relevant as we think about population pressures both here in the US and worldwide. With all of these factors coming into play, it's very reasonable to be thinking about how your home will change at 2C. And here at American Resiliency, as we think about that question, we use the 5th National Climate Assessment data and figures for our projections because they represent the highest consensus climate science available. We have some of the most detailed projection information in the world available here in America. You paid for it and you deserve meaningful access to that information. However, as a matter of congressional mandate, there's no direct federal funding for communicating to the public about the National Climate Assessment. That is why I founded American Resiliency. We're the only nonprofit focused on communicating this important information to the general public, and we run on your donations. In Missouri, I think the factor most of us are most concerned about is the heat, is the emergence of potentially deadly heat. So let's start there. Here in an American Resiliency visualization tool, letting us see the change from where we are now at 1.5 to 2C. But Missouri, before we work through this, you stick with me through the heat because we need to talk about intense rain with you. You've got good spots for that and bad spots. And if you're in a trouble spot for intense rain, you want to know about it. All right, look in here. If you go to this visualization tool, this is our wet bulb risk visualizer, and you can just pan over it and see how many additional weeks you might expect of potentially dangerous heat between now and 2C. In Scotland County, we're going to be adding a week. St. Louis Metro, you're pushing towards 2 additional weeks on the other side of the river, but in Missouri, it's looking more like a week and a half. There's big heat increases, though, projected for that St. Louis Metro region. Buchanan County by St. Joseph, we're showing an additional week, 1 additional week of potentially dangerous temperatures. Same story as we move a bit south towards Kansas City. 1 additional week of potentially dangerous temperature conditions are projected for all of the counties in the Kansas City metro. On this figure, in this wet bulb risk map, as we move into that purple and red territory, nationwide, that's where I do start to worry about wet bulb as a major health risk. So that's almost all of Missouri shifting over into a risk level where I would be concerned, where you're going to be facing more dangerous heat than we have felt before in this region. You will need cooling as part of your resilience strategy once you're moving into level 4 territory there. It's worth noting the southeast corner of Missouri is particularly dangerous on this factor, looking at least a 2-week increase, indicating a high level of change, and regarding, again, a potentially life-threatening factor. I want you to understand, we're talking about summer temperatures regularly peaking over 105 in parts of Missouri as we approach 2C. Here in the total heat map, you can see that for much of Missouri, you're looking at adding 30-ish days over 95 in a general year. And let's try and skim the top off of that. Let's see how many of these 30-ish days additional over 95 are going to fall over 105, because I know you can handle 95-degree heat. I know that you can handle some humidity in Missouri, but 105 in humidity is a very concerning thing to think about. How long are we going to be looking at that sort of extreme condition? For that information, we're going directly into the NCA 5 Climate Atlas, where we're going to be able to get county level information on that factor. In this map, you have to click on each county and wait for the information to load. So I'm just going to give you the report. We're looking at heat at or above 105 everywhere regularly in Missouri. Every summer it'll get over 105 as we approach 2C. You're looking at 3 days at or above 105 in the St. Louis metro area and along the southwest border, although Kansas City metro, you're north of the worst of it, but you are still looking at 2 days over 105 every year at 2C. Looking at this regionally, I think it's really important to look at how red it is by Oklahoma, right? In parts of Oklahoma, we're projecting up to 2 additional weeks over 105. But it's not so humid in that part of Oklahoma by and large. And in Missouri, the humidity is a known serious discomfort already. That hot season peak, a 105 peak that we will expect to last as much as 3 days for much of the state, that's a serious heat. It could be a killing heat. You got to understand the risks and have a strategy. I would be concerned also about the impacts of such heat on livestock and on the creatures of the land. Thinking about constructing shade and accessing caves sounds potentially important to me. Missouri is known as the cave state, and you know what stays cool in peak heat? Is a cave. And you know who you don't want to mess with? Scary cave weirdos are the people that you don't want to mess with. Just saying, if you've ever considered scary cave weirdo as part of your path, there are people who are living the life today. This here is a picture of Joe Ray. He was featured in the TV show Off the Grid, and I found him to be just a really fascinating person who is living an extremely resilient lifestyle in Missouri at this time. But back to the projections. Let's talk about being cave weirdos another time. Here in 2.11, we can see another edge to hold for Missouri. I'd like to focus in on your nighttime heat extension projected for 2C. And this is not so bad. This is a much shorter nighttime hot season extension than daytime hot season extension we were just talking about. Across that orange color in the state, you're looking at 20 to 25 additional nights over 70. That's less than I would have expected for your daytime outlook. That's good for conventional staple crops and for the health of living things. This level of nighttime cooling preservation that we're seeing in that orange area or in the lighter colors, which covers a large portion of Missouri. Winter change impacts tree health and the landscape. And in another view of 2.11, zooming in on cold days, we can see that again, Missouri isn't looking too dramatic in terms of change on this. You're looking at more like a 2-week than a 3-week shortening of the cold season with a little bit more cold loss in those darker points that are impacting near our communities of interest. So this duration here, we can see a shorter winter. What about cold intensity? We can look at winter intensity change in figure 11.3, just showing you the whole thing so you can see where I get this next side-by-side from. And we can see here that this is not bad. This is not a departure from the national average. We're looking at a 5 to 10 degree cold intensity lift in the winter over much of the state. In northern Missouri, you're looking at a very similar rate of change to what's projected for me up in Iowa. Only in Iowa, we're staying with lows hitting 0, and you're moving towards lows above 0. That's going to mean more landscape change for you, as we do get some big changes in what can overwinter once winter lows start moving above 0. And you might like that change in what can overwinter, depending on what you want to grow. But with that level of landscape change, and it is even higher down in southern Missouri than we expect for northern Missouri, you need to be quite vigilant about landscape management. You are going to get wave after wave of gnarly invasives coming into Missouri. We're going to be working at AR to put out some more videos about which bad plants to expect in different parts of the country. Get out a heads up about what emerging plants in your area might be better off with you killing them. All right, now we're going to move towards projected changes to precipitation. You might be able to say you've got territory worth holding in Missouri so far. We're starting to see both the challenges and the edges of the problem. Let's see what light changes in precipitation sheds on it. In figure 210, you should be wanting more rain with that projected hot season increase. And we can see here, zooming in on the 2C information, that you've got it. This is good news. Missouri looks like we're inside the line where we're having some fears about emerging aridity, about the potential for desertification. But of course, there's always the question. You can see here in the lighter region, you're looking at getting about 5% more rain. The darker region, about 10% more rain. What if the rain comes all at once? Because many, many towns this year, all over the US, had a day where they got a foot of rain. None of those towns liked that. It's in figure 210 from the NCA 5 where we can get some insight as to where these devastating rains may be more or less likely to emerge as we approach 2C. In this figure, which is quite complicated, I look for repeating patterns, and in Missouri, we do show signs of danger. But first, I want to direct your attention north to Iowa because there's an important regional feature that I don't think people are paying a lot of attention to. It is conserved roughly across these three maps where you can see there's this lighter band in Iowa, this golden band. We're not expecting precipitation decreases there overall. We're expecting a decrease in extreme and dangerous precipitation. The golden band areas may indicate places where conventional agriculture is going to have a good shot, a best shot. It's nice to note that, it's right nearby, but down in Missouri, you don't have as attractive a feature as the golden band. Instead, you've got this highly conserved, like flood machine going on in rural northeastern Missouri. This trouble spot, I think it is far enough south of our friends in Rutledge that they don't need to worry about it. But there is a conserved repeating signal across all factors in this rural area where it clearly wants to be a wetland there. It would probably be better for everyone if we helped it be a wetland, because until this area with this intense storm signal turns into a substantial enough wetland to even out the flow of water, this watershed is just going to dump giant flood surges right onto the St. Louis metro. So I know it from upstream. There's nothing that we enjoy more in this region than when the Mississippi floods, right? It's devastating. These floods already erode our stability in this region. They're already a gamble that destroys the hopes and fortunes of families and communities. When we think about flooding in Missouri, when we think about flooding in our whole region here, I think we need to expand our mental map for what is a floodplain in this region, especially around the St. Louis metro, which is one of the first places in the US where home insurance started to pull out of the area because they're aware of how crazy this flood risk is going to get. The insurance industry is very aware of these projections. I'm extremely concerned about our friends in the St. Louis metro with these threats of dangerous heat, of killing heat, and of devastating floods coming at once. One quick note for Kansas City. Although you are facing these serious heat challenges, I'm not as concerned for your flood outlook as I am for St. Louis. You do have the better of the major urban outlooks for Missouri, and you have a great art museum there in Kansas City. The Nelson Atkins Museum is just an extraordinary collection. Let me try and pull it together, though. I mean, Missouri has a lot going for it, is my first point. Missouri has a lot worth saving. And my second point is that we should expect this to be overall a high change outlook. We should expect landscape transformation in Missouri with this information we're putting together so far, and that is reflected in the fire map. In figure 7.4 here from the NCA 5, you can see there's a pretty big fire risk increase, a significant darkening on the right-hand side of that map showing emerging risk in Missouri. You're going to want to design with fire in mind in Missouri and let fire be your friend if you can, because the landscape here, even to a greater degree than many nearby states, is going to need to change to thrive. And fire can help it change. We have learned a lot about how to protect homes and communities from fire through the suffering of the West. The California DNR does outreach to teach important lessons about how to protect homes from fire. Homes mostly burn from the inside in a wildfire situation, from fire and embers getting inside the home. So having an evacuation protocol that includes sealing the home is an important thing to think about as we move towards a future with more fire. This is high change, Missouri. This is a high change outlook. I think there's a lot of threats coming at you at once. And with that heat over 105 in humidity that's not characteristic for the region, where people aren't going to be practiced at dealing with it, I would be uneasy. I'd be concerned. If I were making a judgment call and I wasn't super attached to the place, I'd recommend coming a little bit up north. The summer conservation is better even a little bit up north, so I really would recommend that in terms of avoiding life-threatening risks. We're in such a similar region. We use so many similar skills. But I tell you, in Iowa, we do lack caves compared to you in Missouri. And I know that many of you are attached to the land. It does matter that we should hold all we can if we're going to save all that we can. I think there's important territory to hold in Missouri for people who are brave enough to deal with these serious incoming intersecting threats. It's better to know about them so that we can prepare. Let's get ready. Folks, thanks for watching, and I want to thank everyone in the AR community for your contributions that are keeping this nonprofit going. If you want to donate, there's a link on the About page of our YouTube channel or on the top bar of our website, www.americanresiliency.org. I'm very grateful to our donors, to our volunteers, to everyone spreading the word online, and especially to everyone doing the work on the ground. Thanks for getting ready with me, and talk with you again soon.